What I said, you wanted to say No, that's fine. I'm not interested in debating people who have no idea how to discuss.
Do you want to do a 2 minute?
No, you're not a child.
That's very fair.
No, you're not a child. I need 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes.
Listen.
Okay.
See you later. No, let him go.
Unless we're doing it in a formal
Discussion.
Let him make his point. Give him a little bit of respect.
I simply said, I'm saying,
Let him finish.
crucifixion is a well-attested historically, but it's a rumor. I don't have a problem with rumors being well-attested. That's all. The moment you say it's a fact, there's a whole load of evidence that you need to bring.
Yeah.
Do you have any contemporary evidence? Let me ask you very clearly. Any contemporary evidence that we have eyewitnesses saying, I saw it, and their writing is there preserved contemporaneously?
We have the contemporary writings of the people who saw it, yes. Do you want me to quote the evidence?
Let me
expand 1 second. Give him 30 seconds.
What
30 seconds.
No, he's going to give the evidence.
No, what was my demand in terms of evidence?
Contemporary evidence.
What was my demand in terms of evidence?
Contemporary evidence. Can I say so?
Contemporary evidence,
contemporary
yeah?
evidence?
Okay, name some contemporary evidence.
So, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, according to the majority of biblical scholars, come within the first 12 months, even according to the likes of Professor Bart Ehrman, come within the 12 months of Jesus going away. And according to these same scholars, this was not an oral creed which the Apostle Paul himself took upon, but rather someone himself gave it to him. And this is clear when Paul says in Galatians chapter 1:18 that I was acquainted with the knowledge by Peter, who was Jesus' closest disciples. And according to these scholars, the oral creed originates from Peter and James. Peter and James were two of the closest disciples of Jesus that buried his dead body in the ground. What more evidence do you want?
Did you answer? Have you finished your answer?
No, I'm not finished yet. And like I said, does he apply to the same standard to other points of history? So for example, was Pontius Pilate the governor of Judea? All these other first century, he doesn't. The reason why he doesn't believe in the historicity of the crucifixion is based on a book 600 years after, where a man who was possessed by the demon, which is what I believe, told him this.
Was it necessary to bring this caveat, a man who's possessed by the demon? What emotional response are you trying to entice? This is not a civilized behavior. If you want to discuss crucifixion, don't bring, oh, he was possessed by whatever. Shame on you. Now, to answer your points, I asked contemporary evidence. So you are saying Corinthians, and you are suggesting to me Corinthians was written by Paul, if I'm not mistaken. And Paul didn't actually witness it himself, so he wasn't a contemporary first-hand witness. He got it from Peter and James. Sorry, that doesn't count as contemporary first-hand.
So you don't accept the testimony of Jesus?
You're not listening. I have not finished. I have not finished.
Let him finish and then you say. Otherwise we're not going to get...
You have no first-hand witness of anyone saying, I saw it and they've written it. You have Paul saying, oh, I got it from X, Y, Z. They have witnessed the crucifixion. That, to me, is not a direct evidence, right? This is a crucial matter because your whole religion, correct me if I'm not mistaken, your whole religion revolves around the death and crucifixion of Christ. That means the standard of evidence needs to be very, very high. What you're bringing, instead of saying, this is the writing of Peter, who witnessed crucifixion, this is the writing of James, who witnessed crucifixion, you're giving me Paul, who didn't even meet Jesus in his lifetime. He's a self-appointed, self-declared individual who says, I have received revelation from Christ. We don't consider people who haven't even seen Christ, and someone says, I know everything Christ said. Christ gave me all these things to me. So what you have is not a first-hand evidence. You have second, third evidence. Do you have anything first-hand to provide? I'm offering you again the chance to an opportunity.
Okay.
Anything first-hand?
Okay. I quoted an oral creed that was passed on from the disciples of Jesus, then which the Apostle Paul recorded in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, which is accepted by the majority of biblical scholars. These two disciples, which the oral creed comes from, buried Jesus' dead body. What kind of evidence do you want? Give me contemporary evidence of Muhammad splitting the moon. Same
So,
standard.
so,
Give me contemporary evidence.
Yeah, but that's another issue.
so now
bring
we are,
another
we
issue.
are,
We're gonna stick to what
we
Muhammad
are
understands
debating
because-
crucifixion.
If you apply that
Now-
criteria to the life of
Excuse me,
Muhammad,
we're not
no,
debating
we're not
it.
contemporary.
One minute,
I'm
one
saying.
minute.
Okay, see you later.
It's
See you
a
later.
double standard.
See you later,
It's a
Peter.
double standard.
You're
not heckling.
We're not
thank you.
talking about
Right.
prophet now. We're
Thank
talking
you very
about
much. Now,
the crucifixion.
so now as you've realized,
Debate two will be on the
he's
life.
saying,
What did he say?
this was an oral creed transmitted to Paul. That's the summary.
From eyewitnesses.
Thank you.
From eyewitnesses.
Yes, yes. Crucifixion. Welcome salam, brother.
From eyewitnesses.
Yeah. So my point is, crucifixion is a very well attested historical rumor. That's my stance. I don't have a problem being well attested rumor, but it's not the reality. What you are saying, you have evidence for it. So where is the contemporary first-hand evidence? Instead you're saying it's a creedal, oral creed passed on. Now, when you have an oral creed passing on, we're talking about transmission. When something is transmitted from one individual to the other, you need to connect that they met each other, for example, they've heard each other from, and also the person that is being transmitted to. Peter transmits to Paul. Is Paul trustworthy? Did he have a good memory? Was he honest? Was he a man of integrity? These needs to be established, first of all, because Paul is hearing from them through oral transmission. Yeah? Okay. My 4 questions.
Stick to one question. Stick to one.
One question, which is
And then let me
for
answer.
part A, B, and C. One question.
Okay.
Paul's integrity, right? Was Paul one with a good memory? So he recollects exactly what was told to him, transmitted to him. Was he an honest individual? Did he ever lie? Did he never lie or deceive? Okay. And was he man of a good character? Before you say, I take Paul's testimony, we need to test him, whether he's reliable and trustworthy. So provide all this evidence before you move on to the next stage.
Yes.
Thank
Nothing
you.
to do with the Quran now. Only stick to the question.
I'm afraid, please.
Yes.
So Galatians chapter 1 verse 18. Paul says that he went and stayed with Cephas, and the word there he uses is hysterestorai, which means to be acquainted with knowledge. It is a historical fact which all biblical scholars affirm that the disciples of Jesus literally, which your Quran by the way calls Muslims, I don't know how, literally believed in Jesus' crucifixion. So we have the testimony of the disciples of Jesus. We also have Mark's Gospel. Mark's Gospel is the memoirs of the Apostle Peter, who recited, and then his amanuensis Peter wrote this down.
No problem.
So Peter, the Gospel of Mark, which comes from Jesus' disciple Peter, talks about the crucifixion of Jesus. Let me ask you a question. Can you provide any historical evidence that Jesus was not crucified?
Yes, the question
Yes,
is asked.
I will provide.
Can I ask you a question before all this happened? Because I was done, you interrupted.
Yeah, but now.
Right.
Ijaz, I'm debating.
No. Ijaz, look.
That's the question.
When I was
Listen.
So you tell him.
I am going to.
With all due- can I talk?
No. You can debate. Look, you can discuss Ijaz. We can discuss Ijaz. I would be happy for you to discuss with Ijaz. But the one question I asked, enough of the introduction. I'm giving you a chance again. Can you answer the question that I asked? Then we move on.
I just have.
What's the
I gave you the contemporary evidence.
What
of the
is the question
disciples
I
of
asked? Can you remind him about Paul?
Basically, the reliability of Paul.
The reliability of Paul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the reliability of
That
Paul.
he has a good memory. He was an honest man. Never lies, never deceives. He's a good character and man of integrity.
If we're going to take Paul seriously,
Yes. Thank you.
We don't need a running commentary.
I think we do.
you do.
It helps. It helps.
It helps.
Okay, we have excellent church tradition that the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter died as brothers in arms in Rome. And so Peter accepted Paul as a legitimate disciple of Jesus. So Peter, who was a disciple of Jesus, accepted Paul as a man of good honor, as a man of good integrity. Why should we doubt him? And if we're paying to the same standards, the main narrator in your Quran, the Hafs Quran, is a guy called Hafs bin Sulaiman. According to your own Islamic scholars, Hafs bin Sulaiman was a liar and a thief who fabricated things against the Messenger
I have to
of Allah.
stop you there.
And
I
Muhammad
have to stop you
himself,
there.
the Prophet of Allah, also fabricated things against Allah by saying about the 3 goddesses.
What's your name, by the way?
Ruslan.
Ruslan. Sorry to stop you there. I
I'm
asked
just
you.
holding you to your own standard.
No. Look, it's not about standards.
Hold your
First of all, when you talk about like compared to Islamic traditions and histories, without having knowledge of these, obviously, clearly, you just heard something from someone.
No, you're
and
Islamic
listen,
scholars.
you're regurgitating out. I am simply asking you to stick to the topic, which obviously clearly you aren't. Every opportunity that you're responding,
I'm just applying you
excuse me,
to yourself
Ruslan,
to your own
Ruslan, you're all the same. Speakers corner, you're all the same. You have to somehow insult the Prophet, insult Islam, and mockery, and so on and so forth. Now that's become your trademark. Ruslan, I'm talking. Ruslan, I'm talking. So it's become your trademark here, right? Your trademark. So maybe that's how you'll be known in the future. This is how Christians are in their behavior. You know, the only thing that you need to change is this, the approach that you're using. So I asked you about Paul's integrity, then I'm going to give over to Ijaz, because Ijaz nodded his head when you said...
But I was talking to
Listen. Speak to people of knowledge. Hang on. You can ask him as many questions.
You're very intelligent.
I'm talking about knowledge. I'm not talking about intelligence. Don't you realize?
Are you not knowledgeable,
Excuse me. I'm saying on this topic, I am saying speak to someone who knows. But the question I asked you about Paul's reliability, you are saying they died together, Peter and Paul, or something like this. No, I said, do you have anything to corroborate, testify that he was a man possessor of good memory? Obviously, you haven't got anything given me so far yet. I've asked this question so many times. Good memory. Not being dishonest, always being honest and of good character and integrity. You haven't given me anything. Because we know the contrary. When Paul says, to a Jew I'm a Jew, to a Gentile I'm a Gentile. Hang on. Let me speak.
Paul said we do not use deceptive.
Excuse me.
That's what Paul said.
Taken out of context.
Look, when he says to a Jew I'm a Jew, to a low person who's abiding in a low person, and so on and so forth, it's very clear what it means. You will twist it away from its rightful context. So, where is your character witness for Paul? Once you answer that, I am happily handing over to Ijaz, who's knowledgeable in the subject, and you can discuss, because he said he doesn't agree with you what you just said.
I was initially talking with you, now you're handing it over.
Initially wanted to talk to...
I don't want to debate with you with all due respect for my own reasons, and I'll tell you why if the audience wants to hear.
You can say it all twice as well, but I know this topic very well, and what you said was incorrect, absolutely.
But the thing is, you say it's incorrect, but for example,
I'll give you
he made a video.
Why do you say it's incorrect? Why do you say it's incorrect?
He made a video that was published on his channel, EF Dawah, called something, The Textual Transmission of the New Testament, or something like that, part 1. Okay. And this video was analysed by a Christian apologist by the name of Keith Thompson.
Is that true?
Ijaz Ahmad, in that talk, said, and I quote, he was trying to discredit Petrine authorship of the epistles. And he said, we have a New Testament scholar called Professor Marcus Bockmuir, who is a conservative scholar, and he used those words as if this is a guy who's a conservative scholar, not a liberal scholar, and comes to the conclusions that the two epistles weren't written by Peter. Keith Thompson actually emailed Professor Marcus Bockmuir and asked him, have you ever identified as a conservative scholar? He says, no, I was never identified as a conservative. So with all due respect, and this is just one out of a plethora of lies which you used in that, so that's why I don't feel comfortable with you. Because one second, I know you're very knowledgeable, but the problem with your knowledge, you can twist things. And I've only been studying this for a limited amount of time.
Defend your honor now.
Let me defend my honor here. Subhanallah, he says he will not debate me because I'm a liar, and I'm a liar because I described a man as conservative and he wasn't. If that's the greatest lie he can give, then I'm a saint.
It's still a lie.
But it's
still a lie.
mistake I made.
It's still a lie.
So give me something more substantive.
So your argument is Paul wasn't untrustworthy, so if you've been proven to be untrustworthy, he has the right to then not engage with your comments.
Yeah, but that's just one small
No,
thing.
it doesn't matter how small it is. He wouldn't be...
He was making a point. We have
if you have hadith...
So let me speak. So hold on, I can answer that accusation very easily. Wallahi, I got that book recommendation from a New Testament scholar who is a conservative from the New Orleans Baptist.
Shut up,
Let him speak.
Yes,
Let him speak then, because look at your face. You know, just
don't
look at your face.
interrupt
Can
me. It's very simple.
cover his face.
He's calling me a liar, so let me
You are a
correct you.
liar?
Let me correct you. So I got it from a scholar, New Testament scholar, published by Brill on the New Testament, from the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. He recommended that book to me.
And he says he's a
let me finish.
Let him finish.
Dude, come on, right? And in that message he sent to me, he described Marcus Buckmule as a conservative scholar, and he himself was a conservative scholar. So I trusted a Christian, and I was wrong. I will not make that mistake again. Now you said you
What are
don't.
the other things that
Right. So what are the other? Hold on, no.
You said that's
Hold on,
hypocrisy. Something more substantive.
Hold on. I'll make this easy for you. You just make claims about the New Testament, its transmission, about Mark, Matthew, Peter, Paul. Sir, I call you a liar for what you have said, because I could prove you wrong publicly with evidence in front of you. So are you here to defend what you've just said, or are you a coward and you will run? It's very simple. I put the proposition to you.
I'll defend what I said.
Let's defend it. Make your claim again. Make it again.
I've already
No, make it
made
point by
about 3
point.
times.
Make it
Can
point
we make
by
it a bit
point.
bigger so we all listen? It's quite enjoyable talk,
Like a
hopefully.
circle.
Yeah. I'm sure it will be much.
Regular friendship. Let's all hug and kiss. Right. Oh,
You're safe now.
okay. Allahu Akbar. Right.
Nicely.
Right, so make the first.
It's a
point
sexual
that you make
predator agency.
I want us to go point by point, because I'm not going to do machine gun and like do all the topics.
Nicely.
Make one point. I'll shut up. I will shut up, and you can tell me to shut up. Speak for 2 minutes. Make your point. We'll time it. Can someone time it?
Yeah, I can time it. Yeah. 2 minutes. Sorry, don't need time.
No, we need time.
Just on the crucifixion.
Anything you want. But you were speaking about crucifixion, so I would rather address the point you made there, and we go to the second one, just to be fair to you, because you didn't insist upon it. Can you time it?
Yeah.
You can time it as well.
Because he insisted on time earlier on. He just said it was a bit childish sometimes. Okay, that's fine.
Who's going to start
Who's
first?
going to start? Let's say
Don't worry, you're not biased.
I'm
Don't
fine.
worry.
Carry on.
Sorry,
I know you're in it. Just back up a little bit so we got a bit more.
Open up a bit more, boys.
Yeah.
Not too much, because if
Please
you like
subscribe.
baseball,
Please
you'll be over
subscribe
there.
to EF Dawah.
And yes, Dawah as well, which is recording.
Okay,
Okay, who's going to start?
make your point.
Oh, where's the Dawah recording?
Oh, my phone, fudge. Can you get that for me?
2 minutes. 2 minutes?
Sorry, it's in a good case, don't worry. Just hold this for me, please, with the thing open. With the thing. Right, thank you.
Are we ready?
Fake news, I see Dawah.
Are we ready?
Is there a new debate? What's going on?
We're going to start first.
Okay.